Just like 1923, I believe 1944 will pick up her story again. And honestly, that would be amazing. Tiana's voice adds a vital, powerful perspective to the Dutton universe, one that reflects not just a family legacy, but the survival and resilience of an entire culture. Her journey deserves to be told. And I, for one, will be watching every second of it. Now, remember when I mentioned 1969? Yeah, let's go there because that flash forward wasn't just some emotional detour. It meant something. It had to. We saw an older Spencer, weathered, alone, and kneeling near Alex's grave. And if that moment didn't hit you right in the gut, were you even watching? The scene was quiet, almost haunting. It wasn't filled with dialogue or drama, but the silence spoke volumes. It felt like closure, or maybe a prelude to something much bigger. And that's why I believe that after 1944, we won't just stop there. No, we'll push forward into an entirely new era, a 1969 spin-off that could be one of the most emotionally layered installments in the Yellowstone universe yet. Think about it, Spencer. In his later years, dealing with the ghosts of his past. His children, maybe even grandchildren, trying to understand the weight of their legacy in a world that's changing faster than ever. A world that's no longer ruled by cowboys and cattle wars, but by modern politics, cultural revolutions, and shifting American values. And let's not forget one very exciting detail. John Dutton, I was born in 1959. That means in 1969, we'll see him as a 10-year-old, just a kid, probably running around the ranch already showing hints of the man he'll become. A man we followed for 5 gripping seasons in Yellowstone. Imagine seeing that early spark in his eyes, the beginnings of his loyalty to the land, his stubbornness, his sense of duty. That alone would be so special to witness. For longtime fans, it's the kind of callback that hits hard and stays with you. Now, let's talk timelines because if you're like me, you're already wondering when we'll actually get to see all this unfold. Unfortunately, there's still no confirmed release date for 1944, and as of now, 1969 hasn't officially been greenlit either. It's all whispers, rumors, and speculation swirling through the fandom, keeping us on the edge of our seats. But here's the reality: creating a show of this magnitude isn't something that can be rushed. We're talking about meticulous scripting, carefully chosen casting, intricate set designs, and location scouting that captures the essence of a bygone era. Add in all the logistical challenges of a period drama, and you've got a monumental task on your hands. Taylor Sheridan is known for taking his time to craft authentic, captivating stories, and honestly, we wouldn't want it any other way. He's building something that will stand the test of time, and that's always worth the wait. So, being realistic, the earliest we could expect 1944 to hit our screens is probably early 2027. Painful, I know. But if the quality of 1883 and 1923 is any indication, it'll be worth the wait. Let me know what you think in the comments below and watch this next video. After weeks, no, months of emotional buildup, missed connections, soul-crushing setbacks, and edge-of-your-seat anticipation, the moment fans have been desperately waiting for finally arrived, Alex and Spencer's long-awaited reunion. But let me warn you now, this wasn't the romantic slow-motion, running into each other's arms kind of scene we hoped for. Oh, no. Because when Taylor Sheridan is at the wheel, you better believe nothing is ever that simple. Instead of giving us a tearful, heart-melting reunion, Sheridan did what he does best: he delivered chaos. The kind that stuns you into silence. Just when it felt like we could exhale, like Spencer and Alex might finally find peace, he yanked the rug right out from under us. What we got was heartbreak, betrayal, and gut-wrenching tension that made us question everything we thought we knew. Fans across the globe were screaming at their screens, shaking their heads, and maybe even shedding a tear or five. And as for Alex, let's just say she might need to hitch a ride back to the wagon because this emotional roller coaster is nowhere near done. The stakes are higher than ever, and the reunion we thought would bring healing has only cracked open deeper wounds. The past has returned with a vengeance, and the future? Well, it's looking more uncertain than ever. So buckle up because this ride isn't over. In fact, it might just be getting started. All right, let's take a quick step back before we dive into the heart of today's discussion. Yesterday, I dropped a full breakdown of episode 7, and I've got to say it was a full-on emotional roller coaster. If you haven't had a chance to check it out yet, and you're looking for some deep diving and a bit of venting, don't worry, I've got the link for you below. Trust me, you'll want to be part of that conversation because that episode, it's one of those that grabs you by the heart and leaves you staring at your screen in disbelief, wondering how everything unraveled so quickly. If you've been keeping up with the series, you know exactly what I'm talking about, and if not, get ready for one heck of a ride. But today, we're shifting gears a bit. We're not just rehashing the chaos of episode 7. Instead, we're looking ahead into the unknown. We're stepping into the future of the story, exploring where the plot could possibly be headed. With only a few episodes remaining and all this emotional tension building up, fans everywhere are buzzing with theories, speculations, and some pretty wild predictions about what Season 3 could bring to the table. And honestly, it's hard not to get wrapped up in it all, especially with how brilliantly the writers have left just enough breadcrumbs for us to follow. And just enough emotional turmoil to keep us hooked. The suspense is real, and the stakes are higher than ever. Now, let's take a moment to reflect on that ending. The final moments of episode 7 weren't just dramatic, they were downright haunting. Elsa's narration? It wasn't just the usual reflective tone we've grown accustomed to. Oh no, this time it hit differently. If you're like me, her voice carries this weight, a quiet, almost poetic sorrow that always seems to punch you right in the gut. But in this episode, it wasn't just a moment of introspection. It felt like a quiet warning. Elsa offered us a sneak peek into the future, giving us a glimpse of what's to come. And let me tell you, that future, it's one we're not entirely ready for, but it's coming, and it's going to leave us all breathless. And that's where things get really interesting. So without further ado, let's dive into what this could mean for the next chapter of the story, and more importantly, what Season 3 might have in store for Alex, Spencer, and everyone else caught in this storm. Apparently, Spencer died in 1969, exactly 45 years after Alex's death. He never remarried, thank God, but he had a son from a widow we don't know. Now, let's take a closer look at something that's been quietly sitting in the background, but could hold major significance for the future of the Dutton legacy. If we zoom in on the year Spencer dies, 1969, we're stepping into uncharted territory. And here's where it gets interesting. We have absolutely no clear picture of who else is part of the Dutton household at that time. The only possible connections we can speculate on are Spencer's sons, if he had any, and potentially a child from Elizabeth and Jack. But beyond that, it's a whole new generation, a blank canvas. And honestly, it's one of the most intriguing mysteries the show has left us with. Just imagine the kind of stories that could unfold from that missing timeline. Who carried on the Dutton name? Who stood by the Yellowstone Ranch through the chaos of the 20th century? There's a deep, rich well of untold history waiting to be explored, and it's got fans, myself included, absolutely hooked. But hold that thought, we'll circle back to that in a bit. Right now, let's talk about the most pressing question on everyone's mind. What's next for Season 3? From the heart-wrenching final moments of Episode 7, Elsa's narration almost felt like a bittersweet closing chapter, at least when it comes to Spencer's story. Her words wove together a sense of closure, as if the dust was finally starting to settle after all the chaos. But let's not fool ourselves. There are still so many lingering questions, like shadows hanging in the background, waiting to be explored. How exactly did World War I shape the Dutton family? Did the war ever make it to their doorstep in Montana? Were any of them drafted? And if so, what did they lose in the process? These are the deep, unspoken questions that still need to be answered, and I'm dying to see how the show tackles them. Then, there's the fate of Jacob and Kara, the two rock-solid pillars of this entire saga. The idea of them fading away off-screen, without so much as a proper farewell, feels downright devastating. These characters have become so ingrained in our hearts that to think their story might end without a true goodbye is almost too much to bear. But, as much as my heart aches for them, I can't help but hope beyond measure that they were granted something rare in the world of the Duttons: peace. I want to believe that in their final years, they were able to watch over the land they fought tirelessly to protect, surrounded by family, and that their departure wasn't one marked by violence or tragedy, but by a quiet, natural passing. It's the kind of ending they deserve, after all they've been through. Looking ahead, Season 3 holds so much promise. It could finally answer all those unanswered questions and bring clarity to the chaos of the past. But knowing this show, it'll probably throw us a few more curveballs along the way, introducing new mysteries while wrapping up old ones. The future of the Duttons feels wide open, and honestly, I can't wait to see where the next chapter of this epic journey will lead us. But it's not just about the Duttons. There's Elizabeth who, after the tragic death of Jack, leaves the ranch carrying his child, her heart heavy with loss. Her departure marks a shift, a moment where we're left wondering what kind of life she'll carve out for herself and her baby in the aftermath of such heartache. What path will she walk, and how will her story continue to intertwine with the Dutton legacy? And we can't forget Tiana Rainwater, a character whose journey has been a whirlwind of pain, strength, and transformation. The trauma she's endured, the violence she's witnessed, and the injustices she's fought against have shaped her into someone far stronger than anyone could have imagined. Now, as she steps into a new chapter, we watch her carve out a future for herself, one that was almost stolen from her. There's a quiet sense of hope as she leaves her past behind, but with that hope comes an undeniable uncertainty. What's next for her? Where is she headed, and will she ever cross paths with the Duttons again? Or will her story run alongside theirs, silently shaping the foundation of what's to come? Tiana's journey deserves far more attention, more depth, and most importantly, a season that gives her the justice and closure her character truly deserves. It's time for her story to shine in ways it hasn't yet, and I'm eager to see how the writers bring her journey to a powerful, fulfilling conclusion. Now, let's talk about what's next. Another season of 1923 could definitely be something special. There's still so much we don't know, so many loose threads left dangling. From Jacob and Kara's fate to the ripple effects of the war, and of course, the future of Spencer and Alex. Season 3 could bring clarity, resolution, and emotional payoff. But here's the thing: without the electrifying tension of Banner Creighton and the sinister scheming of Donald Whitfield, the central conflict that made the first two seasons so gripping might not hit as hard in a third round. Those villains were brutal, magnetic, and essential to the story's pulse. Without them, would Season 3 still carry the same emotional weight and narrative firepower? That's why, instead of continuing 1923 with another season, I believe it's time to shift our focus entirely. What we really need isn't just another season, it's a brand new Yellowstone prequel. One that picks up in the aftermath and dives into the chaos of a new era. We need 1944. Think about it, a time of global war, political upheaval, and massive cultural change. The Duttons caught in the middle of it all, struggling to preserve their land, their legacy, and their identity. A generation facing not just family drama, but world-shaking events that could alter the course of the Yellowstone Ranch forever. Imagine the stakes. Imagine the stories. 1944 isn't just a continuation, it's the evolution of the Dutton saga. And it might just be the bold, brilliant step this universe needs next. So, what would this show be about? First things first, if we ever get the Yellowstone prequel we've all been eagerly dreaming about, it's going to take us right into the raw, untamed heart of Montana. Picture it, the sweeping, endless landscape that stretches out before you, the towering mountains kissing the horizon, the vast skies that feel like they go on forever, and the brutal winters and sun-scorched summers that make this land both unforgiving and breathtaking. This isn't just a backdrop to the story, it's a living, breathing character that has witnessed the rise and fall of generations. And this time, it's 1944, right on the cusp of a world on the brink of transformation. World War II is nearing its end, but the scars, both physical and emotional, are still fresh, raw, and deeply felt. The Duttons, like the rest of the world, are simply trying to hold on, trying to make sense of a world that's forever altered. Now, as much as I'd love to see Jacob and Kara back in action, those two icons of strength, resilience, and grace, we need to acknowledge the reality of the timeline. A full 21 years have passed since the events of 1923, and as much as we hold Harrison Ford's stoic presence and Helen Mirren's fierce spirit in the highest regard, the odds that these beloved characters would still be alive by 1944 are heartbreakingly slim. As much as we treasure their portrayals, it's likely their time in the Yellowstone saga has come to a close. But their legacy? Oh, that legacy is far from gone. It's etched into the very foundation of the Dutton family and continues to shape every decision, every action, every struggle the family faces moving forward. This brings us to Spencer. We already know from Elsa's narration that Spencer never remarries. Whatever tragedy or twist of fate transpired between him and Alex, he never found love again. So what we're left with is Spencer, now carrying the weight of the Dutton name, alongside his sons, trying desperately to keep Yellowstone Ranch alive in a world spiraling out of control. But here's the catch, there's no matriarch. No strong, guiding female presence at the head of the table. And that, my friends, is a game changer. Because let's be honest, the Dutton story has always been defined by the strength of its women. Think about Margaret, Kara, Alex. These women weren't just the wives or mothers in the background, they were warriors, leaders, the backbone of the family, in ways we can't even begin to fully appreciate. They brought balance to the brutality, heart to the hardship. They were the ones who kept the family grounded, who kept the flame of hope alive even when things seemed darkest. Without a Dutton woman at the helm, the family feels incomplete. It feels fragile. And if we're about to step into a new chapter in 1944, we need that fierce, unrelenting female energy back at the center of the story. Because that's what's been missing, the force that pushes the family forward, the fire that refuses to let the Dutton name fade away. It's time for the Dutton women to rise again, to bring their strength back to the table, and remind us all what makes this saga so unforgettable. The question is, who will rise to fill that role? Here's what I'm thinking. Let's take a moment to talk about Elizabeth, because trust me, her story is far from finished. I can absolutely see her returning from Boston, choosing to raise her child back on Dutton land. Life, as we know, doesn't always unfold the way we expect. Maybe Elizabeth loses everything, her security, her future, even her family, and finds herself with no choice but to return to the only place that has ever truly felt like home. Not because it's easy, but because it's where her roots run deep, where Jack's memory lives on in every fence post, every gust of wind, every piece of earth beneath her feet. And if that's the case, her return could be one of the most powerful and poignant arcs in the 1944 prequel, a journey of resilience, redemption, and the unbreakable bonds of family. Now, let's be real, Elizabeth wasn't exactly the most mature character when we first met her. She was impulsive, emotional, and she didn't fully grasp the brutal reality of the world she was stepping into. But come on, she was just a teenager, thrust into the heart of a world filled with cattle wars, violence, and frontier justice, all while trying to figure out how to be a wife, a mother, and a Dutton. No one could blame her for struggling. But by the end of season 2, we saw something shift in her. A fire began to grow inside her, a quiet strength that made her tougher, more grounded, and more self-aware. She started to carry herself not just as a girl in love, but as a woman who was ready to fight for what truly mattered. And by 1944, I can imagine Elizabeth holding on to that same wild streak, the spark of defiance and passion. But now, it's channeled into something purposeful. She's been shaped by grief and loss, yes, but also by an unshakable sense of purpose. She's the kind of woman the ranch needs a force to be reckoned with. But then, there's the mystery that still lingers. Elsa never tells us what happened to Elizabeth after the events of 1923. She simply fades from the narrative, and just like that, we're left with questions. Remember, Elizabeth was pregnant with Jack's child. That means there's another Dutton heir out there, one whose existence could dramatically shift the entire family line by 1944. So not only is Elizabeth's return possible, it might be downright essential to the future of the Duttons. I've seen fan theories circulating that suggest Spencer's son was born to a widow, with some even claiming that widow is Elizabeth. But personally, I don't buy it. Spencer and Elizabeth may both carry the weight of loss, but their stories never really aligned romantically. Forcing that connection would do a disservice to both characters. Spencer's bond with Alex, forged through fire, war, and heartache, was something truly special. And Elizabeth's love for Jack was raw, real, and heartbreakingly short-lived. Trying to turn them into a romantic pairing would feel out of place. It would feel wrong, honestly. On so many emotional and narrative levels, it would undermine everything they've endured. Some scars are too deep to be healed with romance, and these two characters deserve to move forward in their own ways, without having their stories reduced to a love interest for one another. What Spencer and Elizabeth truly deserve isn't a forced romance. It's strong, individual story arcs that honor their pasts while allowing them to evolve on their own terms. Let them lead, let them grow, and let them do it in a way that feels true to who they are. That's the kind of storytelling we need from Taylor Sheridan, who's proven time and time again that he knows how to honor complex, authentic, character-driven stories. But let's not forget there's also the next generation to consider. The true heirs to the Dutton legacy. By 1944, the focus could very well shift to these young Duttons, growing up during one of the most defining and turbulent periods in American history. Imagine the challenges they'll face not just as ranchers, but as the bearers of a legacy built on blood, grit, sacrifice, and untold pain. That alone could fuel an entire season, or maybe even more. The weight of the family name, the responsibilities they inherit, there's so much potential there. And finally, we can't talk about the future without acknowledging Tiana. In the haunting final moments of 1923, Tiana tasted freedom for the first time in her life. Freedom she'd been brutally denied for far too long. She lost everything: her family, her innocence, her safety, just to gain the right to exist as a free young woman. Now that she's walking her own path, far removed from the horrors of the boarding school, her journey has never been more crucial. Tiana's story is not just important, it's essential. She is a beacon of survival, strength, and the resilience of the human spirit, and I have no doubt her next chapter will be one of the most powerful in the entire saga. What happened next? Where did she go? Did she find peace, or was her fight far from over?